May 7, 2026. The Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil passes through this narrow waterway every single day, and on this day, it became a kill box. 3 United States Navy destroyers, the USS Truxtun, the USS Rafael Peralta, and the USS Mason, were transiting the strait toward the Gulf of Oman. Standard movement, standard formation, standard patrol. Then the sky lit up. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy launched a coordinated swarm attack using ballistic missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles, explosive drones, and high-speed fast attack boats. Not one weapon system, not 2, 3 different domains, air, surface, and sea, all at once. According to U.S. Central Command, Iranian forces fired multiple missiles, drones, and small boats at the 3 American warships simultaneously. The IRGC later claimed, and I want you to remember this because it matters, that the U.S. vessels sustained significant damage and were forced to retreat from the strait. The United States said something completely different. 0 damage, 0 casualties, every single threat intercepted. 1 event, 2 utterly contradictory narratives. And somewhere between them lies the truth about what really happened in the Strait of Hormuz on May 7th, 2026. Before I break down exactly what happened, hit that subscribe button. I'm War Conflict. I post forensic analysis of every major military escalation. The battle in the strait isn't over, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Subscribe now. Let me establish the confirmed facts first, because in a fog of war this thick, facts are your only anchor. U.S. Central Command confirmed that 3 American guided missile destroyers, the USS Truxtun, USS Rafael Peralta, and USS Mason, came under attack while transiting the Strait of Hormuz on May 7, 2026. The attack was not a single missile launch. It was not a single drone. It was a coordinated, multi-domain swarm assault designed to overwhelm American defenses through sheer volume and simultaneity. According to CENTCOM, Iranian forces deployed anti-ship ballistic missiles fired from coastal batteries, anti-ship cruise missiles, explosive drone swarms targeting ship decks, and high-speed fast attack boats attempting to close the distance. The IRGC Navy's official statement described it as a large-scale and precise combined operation. Here's what the IRGC claimed happened next. They said, and I'm quoting directly from their statement, that intelligence assessments indicated that the U.S. vessels sustained significant damage, and that 3 destroyers retreated from the Strait of Hormuz area. The United States rejected that claim entirely. President Trump took to Truth Social shortly after the clash and described the engagement in dramatically different terms. He wrote, and I quote, "Missiles were shot at our destroyers and were easily knocked down. Likewise, drones came and were incinerated while in the air. They dropped ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave." Trump also claimed that Iranian small boats went to the bottom of the sea, quickly and efficiently. He concluded, "There was no damage done to the 3 destroyers, but great damage done to the Iranian attackers." So who is telling the truth? The answer is more complicated than you might think. To understand this battle, you need to understand what Iran actually fired. First, ballistic missiles. Iran has a growing arsenal of anti-ship ballistic missiles. Unlike traditional cruise missiles that fly low and slow, ballistic missiles fly high and fast. They're harder to intercept but easier to detect. The Aegis system on U.S. destroyers is specifically designed to track and destroy these threats. Second, anti-ship cruise missiles. These fly low, sea-skimming low. They're harder to detect but slower than ballistic missiles. The Hoveza, which I covered in a previous analysis, is one example. The Iranian Defense Ministry has publicly stated these missiles have ranges up to 1,350 kilometers and accuracies within 1 meter. Third, explosive drone swarms. This is where the threat becomes genuinely new. Iran has invested heavily in one-way attack drones, essentially cruise missiles with propellers. They're cheap, they're hard to track, and they can be launched in swarms to overwhelm point defense systems like the Phalanx CIWS. Fourth, fast attack boats. Small, agile, armed. They move at 40 to 50 knots and try to close the distance to where destroyers' large weapons can't track them. The U.S. Navy engaged these boats with Apache helicopters firing Hellfire missiles and 50 caliber machine guns, according to CBS News reporting. The IRGC claimed this was a response to a U.S. strike on an Iranian oil tanker near Jask port. But the timing suggests something else. This was a pre-planned operation, waiting for the right moment to execute. Here's the number that matters most from this engagement. 0. 0 U.S. ships hit. 0 casualties, 0 damage. The 3 destroyers used a layered defense system that military planners have spent decades perfecting. Layer 1, Aegis Combat System, the backbone of U.S. naval air defense. It tracks hundreds of targets simultaneously and coordinates intercepts. According to CENTCOM, the Aegis system successfully tracked and destroyed incoming ballistic and cruise missiles. Layer 2, Phalanx CWS, the last-ditch defense, a 20mm Gatling gun that fires 4,500 rounds per minute. When a missile gets past the outer defenses, the Phalanx literally puts a wall of metal in front of it. One Navy official described watching the system engage. The Gatling guns light up the night sky with red tracer rounds. It's like watching a metal storm. Layer 3, Electronic Warfare. The destroyers jammed Iranian drone guidance systems, causing many to lose lock and splash harmlessly into the water. Layer 4, Apache helicopters. According to CBS News reporting, American Apache helicopters fired Hellfire missiles and 50 caliber machine guns at approaching fast boats. In an interview with ABC News, President Trump described the entire U.S. response as just a love tap. That's diplomatic language for, we destroyed them without breaking a sweat. But here's what you need to understand about that 0 damage figure. It doesn't mean the attack failed. It means the attack was intercepted. And that distinction matters because Iran is learning. Most coverage of this battle asks the wrong question. Who won? The right question is, what was Iran trying to accomplish? Let me give you 3 possibilities. None of them are comforting. Possibility 1. Iran wanted to hit the ships. This assumes the IRGC genuinely believed they could sink or damage a U.S. destroyer. If this is true, the attack failed completely. But it also reveals that Iran is willing to attempt direct strikes on U.S. naval assets, something they've historically avoided. Possibility 2. Iran wanted to test U.S. defenses. This is the more likely explanation. Iran fired a mix of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones, and fast boats, all at once. They wanted to see how the Aegis system would react. They wanted to see which weapons got through and which were stopped. This was a live fire test of American naval capabilities, conducted with real weapons and real targets. According to Gulf News analysis, some military observers argue this operation was a bait and switch, designed to draw Iranian naval forces into the open so the U.S. could identify and target their positions. The theory is that the U.S. destroyers were deliberately sailed in predictable patterns to provoke a response, revealing hidden Iranian launch sites that could then be destroyed. If that theory is correct, the trap worked. The U.S. retaliatory strikes hit Iranian missile and drone launch facilities on Qeshm Island, command and control centers near Bandar Abbas, and intelligence nodes. NASA firms' satellite data confirmed large fires at these locations. Possibility 3. Iran wanted to send a message. The message is simple. We can reach you. We can hit you. We can force you to spend millions of dollars on interceptors while we spend thousands on drones. This is asymmetric warfare at its most refined. The IRGC's statement explicitly linked the attack to 2 things: a U.S. strike on an Iranian oil tanker near Jask, and the presence of U.S. destroyers approaching the strait. They were saying, in effect, if you come near our waters, we will fight, and we will use everything we have. The U.S. response was immediate and overwhelming. According to CENTCOM, American forces struck back at missile and drone launch facilities on Qeshm Island, command and control centers near Bandar Abbas, and intelligence and surveillance nodes involved in the attack. President Trump later told ABC News the strikes were just a love tap and insisted the fragile April ceasefire remained in effect. But love tap is doing a lot of work in that sentence. 6 Iranian fast attack boats were sunk, launch sites were obliterated, and according to NASA satellite data, large fires burned at Iranian military installations for hours. Trump also warned that if Iran does not agree to a deal fast, the U.S. would respond a lot harder and a lot more violently to any future provocations. The Iranian response was defiance. The IRGC stood by its claim that U.S. ships were damaged and forced to retreat. State media broadcast footage of the attack, though the footage showed no actual hits on American vessels. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi accused the U.S. of using force instead of diplomacy, stating, "Every time a diplomatic solution is offered, the U.S. chooses the path of reckless military adventure." The battle on May 7, 2026, was not a decisive victory for either side. Iran proved it can launch a coordinated multi-domain attack against the world's most powerful navy. That's not nothing. 3 years ago, the IRGC lacked the coordination and precision to pull off an operation of this complexity. The United States proved its layered defenses work. 0 damage, 0 casualties, every threat intercepted. That's also not nothing. But here's what keeps me up at night. Iran just tested its full arsenal against live American targets and learned exactly what works and what doesn't. The next attack won't look like this one. It will be adapted based on the data Iran collected on May 7th. The US just revealed its defensive capabilities, where the gaps are, how fast the systems react, what gets through and what doesn't. Iran's intelligence services are analyzing that data right now. The trap isn't over, it's just been reset. Iran doesn't need to sink a destroyer to win this war. It needs to prove that the cost of operating in the Strait of Hormuz is higher than the benefit. Every missile fired, every drone launched, every fast boat deployed, each one forces the US to spend millions on defense, while Iran spends thousands on offense. That math hasn't changed. And that's the real story of May 7th, 2026. I'll be tracking Iran's naval strategy in the coming weeks. The battle in the Strait is not over, it's just beginning. If you want the story beneath the story, you know where to find me. This is War Conflict. I'll see you in the next one.